Good evening, and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. So, I was going to put this off, but, search engine optimization being what it is, I would have rather gotten it out now. So, today what we're here to talk about is the delay of The Marvels. Directed by Nia DaCosta, and it will feature Kamala Khan and who's played by Iman Vellani, and Teyonah Parris is Spectrum, I think is her code name, and Carol Danvers as played by Brie Larson, all teaming up to fight some enemy of some kind. This movie was the key word here, slated for July 28th, a late July release. It has, as of today, been delayed to November 10th. Now, here's the thing about the November 10th date. I'm looking at this and I'm of two minds. The first one comes from looking at Marvel over the last few years, and that thought is, they're setting this movie up to fail. And what I mean by that is, like, when the Flash movie is released, I'm like, why would they do that? That's a weird decision. And, usually, if you think a movie's not going to do well, you sandwich it between two other ones and then chalk it up to, it had stiff competition. Like, why wouldn't it have bombed? It's like that kind of thing, where it's like, so it's not specifically the movie's fault that it didn't do well. It's these outside factors, even though you moved the movie into that date with that situation. Because here's the thing about November 10th. The week before is November 3rd. That's the release date of Dune Part 2. With Timothée Chalamet coming back as Paul Atreides, and, it's a continuation. I'm not going to sit here and get into the whole Dune of it all, but it's going to finish out the first Dune book with Dune Part 2. So that's the week before. Then we have The Marvels, now on the next week. The week after, the third week of November, is The Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, they've already started the marketing for that movie, because, they've been very open about what they're doing with this movie. They had a teaser at the VMAs last year. They started advertising the movie as they were starting to shoot footage. That is a very aggressive marketing plan to get it in the public consciousness. And they were very quick to option this after the book came out, because the book only came out in 2020. We were still in the pandemic when that book came out. In the heart of the pandemic, during the middle of lockdown when that book came out. It's one of those things where it's I don't know why they think this is a good idea, because unless they know that The Hunger Games is going to vacate this release date, and The Hunger Games is going to move back into December or early 2024, which is a possibility, don't get me wrong. But unless they know that for certain, and they're like, definitely this is happening, that's going to happen, this is a terrible release date. Because looking at the November calendar, the next week, for the week of Thanksgiving, Disney's putting out their animated movie, where they have Wish coming out. And that's their 100th anniversary fucking Disney movie. And I look at this idea they have and what they're doing here, and I'm like, why was this what you thought was a good idea? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't line up. The only thing I think of is that they know that The Hunger Games is getting delayed. Because if they opt to put this movie out against The Hunger Games, they are actively affecting the earnings potential of this movie. Because I don't think that The Marvels, for a movie to be that good, that The Hunger Games doesn't take up as big, Marvel movies have had a week 1 to week 2 drop off that has been kind of large in the post-pandemic world. They haven't been immune from this thing. The only movie that really hasn't dropped off in the same way and kind of continued to have legs was Avatar. But the rest of the movies that have come out, including Marvel Studios, have all had these colossal drop-offs week 1 to week 2. And if this continues, then you're just taking that and making it even worse. Unless they're just gonna. Here's the other possibility that I think is also, possible. Number one, I think it's possible that weekend might be Veterans Day weekend. Maybe they're looking at it as a 3-day weekend, and they're like, all right, we'll do that. But here's the other thing that I don't understand. They were early enough with the delay of Blade into 2024 that they could have moved the Marvels into November. And the other thing is, they're putting it out this weekend, where they're going to have a record-breaking for the franchise weekend for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where Quantumania is going to do 120, 130 million. So that's going to be the news that comes out of Marvel Studios. They release a poster, and the poster has the new release date. Those who knew the release date originally are aware, like, oh shit, the release date got delayed. But the majority of people probably don't know the release date offhand. They just know the Marvels is coming. It's just that kind of thing where it's like, this is just a baffling decision altogether, where it's like, well, why would you put it here? Like, me looking at this and looking at it for what this is, my thought is they're setting it up for failure. And again, unless they have an insider at Lionsgate, or they've had conversations with Lionsgate where they're like, they're not sticking to this date. Or it's also possible they're hoping Lionsgate blinks off. And goes, you know what, we are not going to compete with Marvel, because up until this point, we've never had one of these YA franchises attempt to compete with a Marvel movie. And when they have in the past, and I think we can maybe count Iron Man and Chronicles of Narnia: The Prince Caspian, but that wasn't really YA in the modern sense. It was, but it's a book adaptation for all ages. Like, that attempted to compete with Marvel, and that did not work out. So maybe that's what they're hoping for, that they're going to be like, look, that didn't work, so we're going to, we're going to blink off of this date. But historically, those movies have come out in November, with the exception of the first one. I don't know, this decision doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know why you would move it into this date, unless you have either such high confidence in this movie that it can outdo a new Hunger Games movie for the first time in almost a decade, the first new Hunger Games since 2015. Either you have that confidence, or you think they're going to leave, or you think the movie's going to do poorly, so you just wanted to get it out, and then when it loses, it's like, oh, well, we're competing with the Hunger Games, what do you expect to happen? At which point, I'm just going to be like, look, you had plenty of room to move it elsewhere. You could have moved it to come out in December, early December, and give yourself a little bit of room, because I don't think Wonka's going to do gangbusters. You could have put it there. You could have put it in October, because October you have a lot of room, because I think, like, the biggest release in October is Saw 10. Like, there is plenty of other spaces you can put this movie and have it, come out and still have the time to finish out what it has to do by release date. It's just not a great situation. I just don't understand what the thought process says, what the thought process was on this. But on that note, we will wrap up there for tonight. So, with that, our next episode will be about Akira on Tuesday. And until then, have a great rest of your week.